All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Open Space and Recreation Plan Forum number two. We appreciate all of you who came to the first one and all of you guys who have come to the second one as well too. I see a couple repeats for Forum one and Forum two. My name is Shane O'Brien. I'm the town planner for the town of Bridgewater. And here with me is our consultant, Beals and Thomas, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For anyone who wasn't at the first forum, my name is Jackie. I work at Beals and Thomas. I'm an environmental planning specialist, and I'm working with my colleagues, Stacy and Mary Kate, to help draft this. I will let Stacy and MK introduce themselves if they'd like.
Hi everyone, I'm MK Schneeweiss. I also go by Mary Kate. I'm a senior environmental planning specialist at Beals and Thomas. I am helping Jackie prepare the plan. I'm assisting with some of the public input and helping with compliance with the Department of Conservation Services standards for open space plans.
Hey everyone, I'm Stacy. I'm a principal with Beals and Thomas. I'm a wetland scientist by training, but I lead our planning and environmental services group. Jackie and MK are doing all the hard work on this project, but I'm just here to assist. And I'm the project manager for Beals and Thomas for the project. So happy to be here. Thanks very much for coming out.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Before I pass to the presentation, I just want to make this noted as well, too. This is being recorded. So if someone's not here necessarily live and in person, I know that I think there was conservation tonight as well as a Taunton River Stewardship meeting tonight, too. This will be available on YouTube. You can rewatch the meeting and, be part of this process as well, too. So, but furthermore, let's start our presentation.
Thanks, Jane. MK, if you want to, there we go. So just some general principles for today. Be present, assume good intentions in yourself and others, be open to different perspectives and ideas. We don't expect everyone to be an expert in these topics. We're really hoping for an engaging Q&A at the end. We're really looking for feedback and we'll take any questions or opinions that anyone has to offer. So just a little bit about us at Beals and Thomas for anyone who wasn't at the first forum. We're a multidisciplinary firm. We provide civil engineering, land surveying, landscape architecture, and planning and environmental services. Mary Kate, Stacy, and myself, as we mentioned, are part of the Planning and Environmental Services group. We do provide a variety of services, but part of that is assisting municipalities with various planning initiatives such as this. We're also currently assisting the town of Cohasset with their OSRP update as well. So for this presentation today, we're going to go through some general information just for anyone, again, who wasn't at the first forum. But the real meat and potatoes of this one is going to be going through the action plan, going through the goals and highlighting some of the individual action items so we can get feedback on the action plan going forward.
All right, so before we dive into what specifically the Bridgewater Open Space and Recreation Plan contents are, I just wanted to give folks a little introduction to what is open space and recreation and what is an open space and recreation plan. With apologies to anyone who attended the first public forum, this will look a little familiar to you. So open space is generally undeveloped natural land that can provide both recreation and conservation opportunities, such as scenic views or wildlife habitat. It takes a number of forms. It can be dedicated conservation land. It can be privately held forest that has not been developed. It can even include green areas along roadways. So some examples of open space in Bridgewater would include Hockomock Swamp and Lake Nippanicket, or the Taunton River Wildlife Management Areas. These open space areas can be held by a variety of different landowners. For instance, in Bridgewater, a lot of the open space is owned by the town, as well as the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through the Old Colony Correction Center and the Bridgewater State University. But there's also nonprofit open space landowners such as Wildlands Trust. And can also be open space that is privately held, so not held for an open space interest, but the town is interested in identifying it and potentially pursuing future acquisitions. Now, recreation is a little bit of an interesting one because we're going to be talking about two different kinds of recreation. Active recreation is probably most likely what you think of when you think of a recreation area, such as a ball field or a park. So it's an outdoor activity area that has significant changes to the natural landscape. Some examples of those in Bridgewater would be Legion Field, any of the other fields at the middle or elementary or high school, or Old Scotland Links Golf Course. Whereas passive recreation is an outdoor recreation activity that can take place in nature without significant alteration of a land. It can include stuff like bridges and trails, but not necessarily wholesale grading and or construction of fields. So examples of passive recreation activities might include bird watching, horseback riding, hiking, similar to what you might find at Camp Titicut. So the goal of an open space and recreation plan is to shape the future of how the town manages their open space and recreation areas. The most actionable of those reasons to write an open space and recreation plan is because it makes funding available through the Executive Office of Energy Environmental Affairs, Division of Conservation Services, who reviews and approves all open space and rec plans in the state. Once a town has a open space and rec plan that has been approved by DCS, you're eligible for a number of different grants. Those grants are have specific, we're not going to go into that tonight, but each grant has a specific eligibility requirement where there's certain things it will and certain things it will not fund. But by virtue of having a plan, if one of the action items identified in the plan meets those eligibility criteria, it allows you to apply for that funding. More broadly, it also allows Bridgewater to have an action plan that will guide it over the next 10 years. And lay out a roadmap so that this isn't just a plan that sits on the shelf. It's something that has a target goal year and some a little bit of information about how to implement the action items therein. And lastly, it also helps residents create a community that they want to see in the future in terms of what is important for them to preserve. What sort of things are they be interested in changing or maintaining better? And that's really what we're hoping to hear from you all tonight. So in terms of the process, we are in sort of the ending of the drafting the OSRP process. As you might recall, we had done some public outreach early on. We did a survey a number of months ago. Then last month, we held our in-person public forum at Bridgewater State University. These were advertised with flyers and on social media to try to get out the word. While that's been going on, Jackie and I have been drafting the actual plan contents. That's included extensive research into some of the things like the environmental, historical, and population features of the town. We've also taken the feedback that we got from that initial public outreach and incorporated it into the plan. We've also been working with Shane to get the town staff input on the plan. So right now we have a complete draft. Shane has popped a link in the chat if you are interested in reviewing that. Not to jump ahead, but this is the next step of public input. We're going to have this draft out for public comment, and once the public comment is complete, we'll be able to incorporate that and submit it to DCS for review and approval. And once they approve it, it is good for a period of 10 years, and it will be able to be implemented. So in terms of what you can expect when reviewing the Open Space and Recreation Plan, this follows the Open Space and Rec Planners Workbook that was updated most recently in 2025. So there'll be some slight differences in terms of what was last included in the 2027 plan. But what you can expect is, first of all, just a plan summary of the major overview of the process, some information on the community setting that provides Bridgewater's history, as well as the growth and development patterns that have occurred historically and we can expect in the future. There's an in-depth environmental industry inventory, excuse me, that provides a list of, or a description of Bridgewater's environmental resources. The meat and potatoes of the OSRP is the inventory of lands of conservation and recreation interest, which is a list of all of the parcels that any of the earlier entities we've discussed currently owns, or parcels that the town has identified that serve another open space and recreation interest, as well as some more information on each parcel, such as what is the quality of the features there and what are some additional needs, or what purposes can it serve in the future. Then we have the analysis of needs. What are the town's open space needs? And then lastly, the action plan that is a comprehensive document that looks at how to address the needs identified in the previous chapter over the next 10 years. And I guess I said lastly already, but finally, the public comment section will be compiled all of the comments that we receive tonight and onward. So the draft OSRP as it currently stands has incorporated information from the prior plan in terms of what goals and objectives have been completed and what is the town interested in carrying forward. We've also looked at other more recent plans and initiatives, such as the master plan or the CPC plan, just to make sure that this plan is consistent with those. It also incorporates the results of that aforementioned research, as well as the input that we've gotten from town staff to date and the input we've received at the survey and the previous public forum. So that is what has been done to date. I'm going to turn it back over to Jackie to go over the action plan.
Thank you. So the draft action plan, as Mary Kate mentioned, was developed through research and coordination, reviewing other plans, the previous OSRP, and our coordination with Shane, just to get an idea of what the town's goals still are. If there's anything relevant we can pull forward from the last OSRP, and what new goals the town has. So the action plan currently contains 8 overarching goals. Each goal then identifies specific actionable items that can be implemented in order to achieve the relevant goal. So what we're going to do after this is we're going to run through each of the current goals, and then we're going to go over a few of the highlight of action items under each. Just a few things to keep in mind as we're going through this. We won't go through every individual action item. We're just going to highlight a few to kind of give you an idea of what's being carried under each goal. The complete action plan is included in the draft that Shane linked, which will also be on the website. And we can go over that at the end. But another thing I wanted to know, the action plan is not necessarily organized in order of importance. Like goal number 7 isn't necessarily less important than goal number 1. The purpose of the action plan is to kind of identify everything that is significant to the town. So all goals are equally as important. They just, some have to be first, some have to be last. You want to go to the next slide, MK? All right, so the first goal is to explore acquisition and enhancement of active and passive recreation opportunities. Some of these are existing goals from the previous OSRP, and some were identified through our research and through our discussions at the first hearing forum. Some examples include evaluating opportunities to expand existing recreation facilities, including adding pickleball courts or expanding the golf course. Provide or enhance parking availability at existing open space and recreation areas. Specifically, the overflow parking at Legion Field was brought up at the first forum. So that has been incorporated as a specific action item. And also establishing priority areas for accessibility improvements. And this will be based off of the ADA accessibility transition plan and the assessment that was recently done for the town. That will be kind of a starting point for identifying some of the areas that are in most need of improvement. The second goal is to create and preserve town-wide regionally linked trails and park systems that connect neighborhoods with various open space and recreation amenities. This is something that has been carried over from the previous OSRP, but we've added a few additional items. Some of the specific action items include identifying and prioritizing gaps in the existing pathways and trail systems, extending existing walking trails to connect to nearby trails, and develop a master trail system with public accessible wayfinding, which would be physical, like map copies or an electronic version. The third goal is something new that we've added to this. It was brought up at the first forum, and we've received feedback in several ways, including during the public survey, that water quality is of great importance. So goal number 3 is to protect the quality and quantity of drinking water and other water resources. Some action items that were identified are evaluate improvements to water quality conditions of rivers and other surface water, like Lake Nip. Continue to enforce local regulations, the wetlands bylaw, riverfront protection, aquifer overlay district, and acquire additional land for conservation around water resources. Potentially looking into parcels that abut Lake Nip, Carver's Pond, Town River, Matfield River, Taunton River, and any other important areas. Goal number 4 is to increase public awareness of available open space and recreation opportunities. I think this was kind of another one that was a little bit molded from the last OSRP. There was something very similar, but we've tweaked it a little bit to match what the town's current actions are. So some of those action items are to develop a consistent naming scheme. This was, again, something that came up at the first forum. Making the signage throughout town consistent, which would also help with wayfinding. Develop a uniform branding and wayfinding signage plan for all recreation and conservation areas, and coordinate with local and regional signage systems as appropriate. So regionally, you'll be able to know what location somebody's talking about. There won't be 3 different names for one location. And then prepare and implement the signage plan, which the signage plan was something that came from the last OSRP, but was not completed yet. Goal number 5, preserve and cultivate public and private agricultural lands. Key action items here would be prioritizing CPA funding for protection of Bridgewater's remaining agricultural land, and preserve opportunities for local food production. We know the town recently completed a CR on Hanson Farm, so implementing additional initiatives such as that is a key priority here. Identify and pursue state funding opportunities to support agriculture, and communicate with landowners to protect agricultural lands through CRs. Goal number 6 is protect and preserve environmentally sensitive areas that promote local and regional ecological and environmental integrities. So key items here are communicate with landowners to protect parcels of habitat significance from development. So this kind of ties into the last one with communicating with landowners about CR opportunities and similar initiatives. Acquire additional land for conservation and passive recreation. This was something that came up frequently on the public survey. There was definitely an interest in acquiring additional conservation land, particularly in areas that can help with connectivity and wildlife corridors. And amending the zoning ordinance to require all new developments incorporate conservation areas or open space components, and potentially tweaking the definition of open space and conservation areas so that they aren't getting away with like a little tiny little piece of land. Goal 7 is improve recreation opportunities for people of varying abilities and ages, including teenage residents and seniors. This goal actually came out of the survey. We did not have much input on teenage opportunities, but that came up at the forum. But the survey did indicate that there was a lack of opportunities for seniors and a potential lack of opportunities for teenage residents. So some key action items here would be conduct additional outreach to teenagers and their parents to identify what their interests are, how we can improve opportunities for them. Also establish community sports programs and summer programs for all ages. It seems like the programs that are currently available are more for the younger crowd, and it might be lacking for the teenage crowd. And coordinate with the senior center to identify opportunities for additional activities and programs. I know there's been discussion about putting a walkway or a walking path in proximity to the senior center, or expanding the pickleball courts that are in that area. And the last goal that is currently in the action plan is to improve maintenance activities and consider opportunities for ecologically friendly practices. This was another item that came up in the public forum and on the survey. The town is aware that there are maintenance needs throughout the open space and rec areas. So some action items that we've come up with are conduct continued community outreach and coordinate volunteer efforts to assist with those maintenance needs, evaluate funding opportunities to assist with or establish a full-time maintenance staff that could potentially come from state town funds, or look into grant opportunities for that. And then something else that was brought up at the public forum is that there used to be a citizen trail stewardship group. So revitalizing that group to assist with volunteer and coordination efforts is something that we've added to the list as well. So those are the main goals and just a little sampling of some of the action items that we've identified under each. Again, the entire action plan is available in the draft. So if you'd like to go and review it action item by action item, please do so. For now, we're interested if anyone has any feedback or additional goals or action items they would like to convey now. So we can open it up for Q&A.
Right. I guess if anyone wants to put anything in the chat, we got virtual hands you can raise. So we'll go with the virtual hands first. Melissa Remendetta, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks, Shane. Thanks for the great presentation. It's very exciting to see all of these developments. I had a question about the share of the file in the chat because I had to try to sign in to get access to it. Is there a way that it could be made public
Yes.
without having to
Yeah,
sign in?
no, so I think the latest link should be okay, Melissa. So I think one of the next slides or the upcoming slides too is that we're going to have this available on the website
Okay.
tomorrow. It's going to be on the open space and recreation page.
Okay.
I can also email it directly to you tonight if you want to look at it as well
All
too.
right. Sounds
But yeah,
good.
I did put it in the chat. But yeah, I'm working on correcting that link, and then it should be all set for everyone to view without having to sign in.
Okay. Thanks, Shane. I have a second question. With regard to protection of water resources, would would or could water testing and potentially even volunteer driven water testing come into play in a plan like this? Meaning funding and resources and training and these kinds of things.
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
I know that acquisition of water property, I think, is more so in the EEA field.
Hmm.
Um, but I'll have to talk with water department as well too, if there's anything that we can kind of cross over and work with. I know that the town does currently already does water testing. Um, but yeah, I think it's a possibility. I just would have to see specifically the EA funding. But more so, it's more so protection of resources as well as there's opportunities, I think, through MVP funding as well too that could utilize as well as I think through hazard mitigation funding. So there are opportunities for grant funding. I don't know the specifics on hand, but I know that there is a lot of fair amount of money, and specifically with this project, you can look at acquisition of property for funding opportunities.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I'm just thinking in line, the Taunton River Watershed Alliance has a very advanced testing program of 22 sites along the Taunton River. And it's a great thing. They have a lot of historic data. It's a great way of keeping in touch with what's going on with our natural resources and how healthy they are. And we have many here. We have Cover Pond, we have Lake Nippenicket, the Town River, and other sites. So it would, and we, and I think Pat's on the line here, but there doesn't seem to be, at least at Lake Nippenicket, there's no testing program active, at least with the town of Raynham. So just wanted to throw that out there as a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also know that the apologies for the conflict too. I know that the Taunton River Stewardship Council is having their meeting tonight at 7 o'clock too. So I know that some people probably on this call might run over to that meeting to watch that as well. All right, MJ Spagone. Hello, Counselor Spagone.
Evening, Shane. Evening, folks. MJ Spagone, 5 Lakeshore Center, counselor at large also. I did actually have a question. On the item relating to acquiring additional land for conservation purposes, this kind of probably relates back more to the zoning ordinance. Is there a potential where the open space recreation plan includes working with the developers themselves to actually um, set aside a larger portion of their developments for open space, not necessarily passive or active recreation, but basically to leave the land untouched.
Yes, I think this is in within goal 6, and I think it was in the last. I don't know if it might have been in the 2009 or 2017 plan as well too, because from the open space and recreation plan came about our open space and conservation development area. So, example of that that's existing in town is you have Oldfield Preserve, or actually Oldfield Estates over there, where most recently, and I think we included that as part of one of our things in the open space plan or a discussion of it too, is that there was land protected along the Taunton River that was transferred over to Wildlands Trust. And I think they have a survey right now out. They're calling it Perkins Preserve. Um, but yeah, there's opportunities through that currently exist. There's not a lot of locations within town that, are able to take advantage of these opportunities. But yeah, I think with this latest zoning ordinance too, or I'm sorry, not latest zoning ordinance, this latest open space plan, we're trying to get creative because we understand that you're not going to get an Oldfield Estates or a project like that um, within the town as that large, but at least looking at other developments in town and how we can incorporate conservation areas, open space. I know that was also a discussion when, as recently as actually earlier this year or late last year, regarding open space when it comes to our senior housing village ordinance.
Mhm. And Shane, just a quick follow-up on that. For obviously that would be for the new developments. Have we done an inventory of parcels of land that are well, they're owned, but they don't serve any ability to be developed. Say, for instance, I know off of my parents' old street off of Bayberry, there's multiple parcels of land that are unperkable. Is that something that could be part of an part of the open space plan to preserve that wooded land in perpetuity, simply because it isn't really developable, but it provides a space for wildlife?
I don't know if this, we've worked with the assessors department regarding how we assess certain parcels in town and how they're taxed. Um, I'll have to recheck through our inventory to see if we have something that distinguishes between developable or non-developable. I don't believe so. But if there's, I guess, looking at the potential here, maybe one of the things that we could into as part of this is that if the town needs to look into an inventory of land that's currently privately owned that could be potentially utilized or donated to the town or to different organizations or nonprofits that would be advantageous from open space and recreational purposes.
Yeah, and Shane, if you don't mind my jumping in on that a bit, because this topic sort of came up in Cohasset in some of the earlier updates we had done for them, and I'll connect it in a moment. But I think the consideration with those sorts of undevelopable lands is that they're likely going to stay undeveloped unless there's a change. And the change in Cohasset was they put in a sewer system that they didn't have before, and they blasted through their bedrock and everything. So that opened up a lot of land that previously was thought to be undevelopable because it didn't perk. But otherwise, if it stays undevelopable, then a lot of times municipalities don't want to put the resources in towards acquiring that land because it's sort of protected by default. But Cohasset was an interesting case where there was a significant change in what could be done in the town because of that sewering.
All right, thank you. We have Kitty Doherty. She messaged me saying that she would like to talk. Kitty, you have the floor.
I can talk. Okay, good. Can you hear me?
I can hear
You're
you loud and clear,
smiling, maybe
Kitty.
you can. When you showed some of your slides, it came up. The one that has the map with the red parcel shape files, that was done for the what did we call it? I think it was the Parkland. Yes, that's one. That was put together by NRTB and our consultant that does our mapping, and those shape files have been added to. Before this is used, it should have, I think, additional properties that would be at Styles and Hart, and there should be some type of changes, maybe where it says Wyman Meadow, that should be updated to include whatever the arrangement is going to be with Wildlands Trust property next door. So that there's several different places in there that need to have updates. Plus, those are only the waterways. You've got other parklands that would have interest to everybody, but they're not on this map. So that's another addition to add to that if you can manage to do it. The other thought that I had, now this says Bridgewater Parklands. When it comes to the passive recreation, I'm sorry. Did someone say something?
No, I think it was an echo on your end, Kitty.
Oh, all right. Good. When someone says something about recreation, if it's a park, you would think it would be a ball field or something with active sports, or even the golf course, if that's how you decide to define that. But when it's the open space properties that are turned into passive rec, if we call them open space parklands, then automatically within a few years, people will get used to that differentiation, so that we know, people will know they have parks and parklands and trails, and also to call it land and water trails, because the waterways are going to become more and more important as what we're doing with Taunton River Stewardship Council and some of the projects that we're doing with the bridging the Bridgewater stewards will eventually have the waterways opened up for safe paddling as well as fish passage. those are a couple of comments in order to be able to clarify things in your presentations. Because otherwise, it again, just it seems just a little bit incomplete. I know this is a draft, but it seems a little bit incomplete. And when you have a novice looking at it, you need to have it as clear as possible. I also am curious about some of the things that were in some of the original management plans that NRTB gifted to the town and accepted at town meeting back maybe 20 years ago now, which it had analyses of each of the parklands. And I'll say, just for an example, Tiddicate. Now, part of the property at Tiddicate, like that, is Tiddicate in Bridgewater is about 26 acres. But when that property was bought with self-help money back in 76 or somewhere in there, it included property that was in Rainham. But because it was all one estate, then the grant had to go for one purchase, and the town of Rainham had agreed by letter to purchase their Rainham properties from the town of Bridgewater, and that was all signed and delivered, and everyone danced around, but they never appropriated the money. So that's been lost in the annals of people that have forgotten about it. So when you talk about some of these different parklands, in those original management plans, there was an action list, and one of the things Tiddicate said to straighten out the property lines that go with it, like some of the trail is on private property. It's not part of the land that the town owns. Maybe that's been done in the last 2 decades. And as far as the property that's out there that's partly in Rainham, I think there was an additional acquisition, and I don't know if it was gifted or purchased, but that should be somehow figured out so that it's accurate with what's shown. And it looks wonderful to see it in red because people can see it pop right, and then they know what it is. But how do you want to include some of the newer properties that the town has acquired? Unless you just want the Riverland, the Riverside Parks. Like all of these that are on this map with the 6 in the different precincts have a water feature.
So if I could just interject for a moment, this graphic was just intended to be a general graphic. It's not being included in the open space plan. We did prepare a new exhibit through our coordination with the assessor's office and Shane that has, it's a very comprehensive map that shows all of the open space and recreation areas that we are currently aware of.
Can you have it separated with one, what would you call it? I guess illustration, where you would have a map of the active parks and then also a map of the passive parks lands, so that then people can start to understand open space a little better?
Well, I think the one issue with that is the definition of how people sometimes interpret passive and active.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's different. I would say it's difficult to distinguish because for some people who utilize a trail for leisure and walking, someone might use that to train for a marathon. It doesn't necessarily mean that, one's active, one's passive, but I would say it's difficult to distinguish the two.
I don't
Sometimes,
really
especially.
think it is if people understand that there's a different function and a different activity on the land, but also the land is different. It's not over processed. It's not graded with trails that are paved and stuff like that. We're talking about having people understand active and passive rec, and that would be one way to accomplish that very
Sure.
quickly.
I think we do have like playground lists and recreation land lists. I think that's distinguished, and pretty much everything else, and I'll let Beals and Thomas talk as well too. Pretty much everything else is under that category of passive recreation, whereas, active recreation is pretty much,
Well,
you know,
if we don't have a common definition, there will always be new people in town that use the definition from whence they originated. When we first brought these management plans to public hearing through the Conservation Commission and then to town meeting, people had a different understanding as to conservation land, thinking that it was the same thing as preserves or reserves. And there's so many different words that are similar, but their area, say like out west, you would have conservation land and people can hunt there. But then you might have another place where it's a sanctuary and they can't. So with those things need to be clarified for what we're doing in the Bridgewaters here. I believe that. I'm not
So
going to harp on it or anything, but I think that we're selling the next 10 years short if we don't clarify what we're thinking.
So the map that is included in the open space and rec plan has, as Jackie said, it was the comprehensive list of all parcels that we're aware of, and it has it broken down by different categories. So, one of them is historical, one of them is agricultural. But I think to your point, there is one category that's conservation, one that is recreation, and one that is conservation and recreation. So I think there is some degree of gradation that is captured in the plan.
Yeah, and Kitty, this is Stacy at Beals and Thomas. I was curious to, I was going to suggest that I think if there's more consensus building around the definitions that's desired or more clarity, then that could be incorporated as an action item coming out of this plan. I think it would be challenging to do it as part of this OSRP.
I don't
But
think there's time to do it.
What's that?
Yeah, to have it in the action plan is wonderful because, I mean, that's one of the things that people need to think on.
Well, and so to that end, I was curious what is driving the desire to have a common understanding for all residents of what is meant when someone says
Okay, when we had the
like,
notice of intent,
is there a challenge that's driving that the town is running into because people aren't considering things the same?
I'll tell you of a situation that happened when NRTB brought the 6 management plans into conservation to go through in a regular NOI as a public hearing for input and all of that. There was places where we referred to it as an open space parklands or open space or passive rec, and it was set aside. So they thought people said, "Oh, this is conservation land," but then there was a discussion that followed on hunting, and some people were horrified that you could hunt on conservation land, and then other people said, if you follow the game rules for the state of Massachusetts, there's no problem with that. So that it comes down to needing to identify something and then clarify it, not with a big long paragraph, but common word usage then sort of works it into the thinking of people and then they're comfortable with it. Like it was one person came from out west and they have a conservation area that's sacred, like we would say a sanctuary would be here. Oh, and another thing too, like someone was referring to something as having a crash bar, and no one knew what that was, a crash bar. Well, we call them guardrails. So that this person was using a British term for crash bar. And we thought, yes, well, but here it didn't make any sense. So I'm just trying to point out that the words that we use have to have some definition. I don't mean you have to have a dictionary within the plan, but there needs to be something that we put together that is standardizing how we use the words and the phrasing. Because up until now, there hasn't been a passive rec system that was really worked into the plan much. And what NRTB has been doing for the last 3 decades is pulling it together with various plans and designs and events and stuff like that. Now we're working on the Old State Farm Trail, and that's going to add so much more dimension to all of this. So it's very important to have it a standard way of talking about it, so we're all using the same language. And I don't mean you just have to do what I said. I mean, we have to figure it out so that it works for the most people.
Right. Understood. Okay, thank you for that context. That was helpful.
And Kitty, we do exactly what you say every time. Don't worry about it.
Har har.
No,
I
thanks,
had some
Kitty.
other comments too, but I don't know. Maybe there'll be a chance for me to chat with you about them first, Shane,
Yeah,
because it might be something that's already resolved.
yeah, because there's sections about we do distinguish certain areas within this plan as passive recreation and have a section of passive recreation areas, but maybe you and I have a conversation and l- like I said, the draft is available if there's anything that we can add and collectively include as part of this too. Um, you and I can have a conversation about that. It's just so you and I are on the same page and as well as,
We're
you
probably on
have
the same page, and even
we're on
in
the
the
same page,
book.
but even after tonight the Taunton stewardship meeting, there might be something that we would like to include that comes from that meeting. So,
There were some naughty things that went on up at Titicate back when we were doing these plans. I say naughty because back then there weren't any laws against it. So that there were people that brought cars in there from the back roads that now have houses all along it, and they would sink the cars in the pond up there. So, and then there were also ropes that hung out of the tree that swung out over the river. And so I was kind of horrified when I saw that. And I'm thinking, well, how do you protect the kids up here if they're going to swing out over the river and there's all rocks down there? And so the police at that time had said there was no management plan whatsoever on that property. So with no discipline, they couldn't enforce anything. So that grew into then the land trust pulling together what it took to have the first 6 parklands on the waterways with professionally done analyses and design plans. And then there was still the issue of the rope in the tree. And so it was at a state conservation conference out in wherever Holy Cross is right now. It
Worcester.
eludes me, but
Yep.
I asked a very in, prominent attorney how we should handle that. And he looked at me and he says, every spring, cut the rope down. Because what you're doing then, when there's no discipline on the property, is removing something that might have gotten weathered or the not safe. And if people put it up again, at least the town had made the effort to go in and remove what they didn't think was good. So that's what I mean about needing definition on things.
Sure.
Because people are going to do things that need to be, I guess you would say, need to be organized. You can't
Sure.
just have anyone going out there and putting cars in the pond and
Sure thing. Well, we're not promoting any cars in the pond or any sort of aquaculture, any sort of interesting sort of things too here. It's just to
and then
kind
we
of
had issues on nocturnal recreation too, but we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, well, there's
I
plenty of things
know.
there are things that do exist outside the realm of this plan that I cannot control. So we're trying to focus in on kind of from
I know, I was
a
just,
town perspective and seeing how we can kind of collaborate with existing trusts and existing commissions. So we all have a general, you guys in terms of other organizations, they're going to kind of treat trails and things of a different nature, but we just want to kind of from a town perspective as
well,
well
the
as,
town perspective is what people have to work with because
sure.
it's either on town land or it's going to be abutting town land. So you
Hmm.
want it to harmonize.
Absolutely. All right. So, no, thank you, Kitty. And you and I can talk offline after this meeting or at a later date. Anyone else have any other questions? I think there's a Q&A. I think I opened it up. I'm not sure. So you can submit some anonymous questions as well too, or if anyone else has any comments, we are open to talking and having a conversation. I have Carlton with your hand raised. Carlton?
Very good. Merrily, can you, I'm, we're getting feedback here in our house. Um, I'm, I'm, I'm looking at
She's gonna have to turn her sound off and then you won't have the echo.
I'm going to another room.
Okay.
I'm looking at the map with all the red, and I concur that it's pretty out of date. And particularly, there is one Chapter 97 park in town. It's called the Old Summer Street Park. That's not on there. That's a small park that is being developed, and it abuts another privately owned park where we're putting in an accessible trail. hopefully in the next 3 to 6 months. Walking place with the ability to have flowers and other things that attract bees and that kind of stuff. So I think that map really seriously needs some updating in terms of the current situation.
Yeah,
And I
and
also did a
Carlton,
quick scan of your report. And because I'm vice chair of the CPC, I noticed that you had language that said up 5 to 9 people. Well, Bridgewater actually has 9 people, 9 positions on ours. And I think that should be not just a general statement, but actually specific to what Bridgewater has. And there are a number of other conservation areas, even going onto the GIS system and looking at the state wetlands and that kind of stuff would be really important for some of the questions.
Yeah.
That's my brief comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlton. And so you were saying, to clarify, I just missed the part of it, 9 positions on the CPC. Is that what you were saying, the second comment?
Yeah, I think that there's I
Okay.
think where it's something where it says 5 to 9 where there are
Right,
9.
say 9 for Bridgewater. And so I just want
There are
to
9?
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's 9.
I just want to re-clarify and reiterate for the group. This slide that you see now with the red parcels, pretend that image doesn't exist on the slide. I think hindsight being 2020, we wouldn't have selected this image. It was just meant to be like a pretty graphic to fill the slide. We know it's old and outdated. It's not in the open space and recreation plan. We know there are more parcels beyond what's shown there. It was just to illustrate something that the town had worked on before. So when you go into the draft plan, there will be that full inventory of open space and recreation parcels that we've worked with Shane and the assessors to compile. And that should have these other properties that you're talking about. If that is missing pieces or parcels, certainly let us know. But this red parcel map is not, we know that it's not current.
It's the equivalent of if you go to the Parks and Recreation page right now, there's a conservation area map. It's not necessarily out to date. It's just to paint a picture. But
Exactly.
we hear what you're saying.
Yep.
I hear you.
Uh,
Thank you.
Counselor Ellenberg.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I agree with Kitty Doherty, and I think I would like to see a map that has the active recreation in a different color, the passive recreation parcels, and it's still in a different thing completely would be the trail that the Old Colony is working on. So would it be possible to compile a map that has all the different elements that Kitty outlined?
Yeah, I think it's feasible. We may have one kind of all together in the draft as well too. But yeah, it's something that's feasible.
I'm gonna just pull that up so everyone can see it.
Sure.
I was going to say I have it up if you want me to share my screen.
Okay, I'm gonna turn sharing over to you then, Jackie, if you have it.
Let's take a second. It's not letting me share now.
Okay. Well, okay, I have it. I have it up now. If you,
Okay, thanks. My share is grayed out for some reason.
okay, just a sec.
Oh, is it at one person at a time sort of share or I
It
don't
might be.
know. Zoom?
There it is. All righty. All right.
So you're saying distinguish this between passive and recreation? Because I think we have this map by ownership as well as utilization. But
Oh,
looking,
I don't know why that's labeled ownership. That's a good catch. It's open space by type. It's not by ownership. That's
sure
the
thing.
wrong.
That's
Yeah,
why we're here. This is why it's in a draft format so we can
yeah.
touch it up and clean it up.
That's a good catch. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, it's open space by what purpose it serves. Why or its primary purpose.
So looking at a map like this, where you guys would like to see something like something similar to this color-wise, where we would distinguish passive and recreation, passive recreation, active recreation, and as well as include trail systems.
Yes.
All right, something we can look into. All right, thank you.
Is there a way to actually tag things as sports fields, like Legion Field and other places are sports fields?
I think we would have to do it based on the parcel because you couldn't do it based on the fields. That would be like you would have to do it based on like the parcel of the field and then some issues that you have or not have, I guess, from a GIS perspective, is that you're including some fields, you're including the entire middle school. So it looks like we have these big parcels of fields, as well as you'll have like Flag Street too. It's not necessarily town property, but the soccer fields on Flag Street would be like, wow, look at this massive parcel that we have for fields, whereas in actuality, it's state prison property. So,
No,
um,
I hear you, Shane, but I'm only saying that like Legion's Field, it's a sports field,
Yeah.
not individual fields. It's the area.
yep.
And out in Scotland, it's an area. And we're going to be putting something on the current middle school grounds, hopefully. So that will be an area of active sports. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I would say that pretty much with a lot of those parcels anyways, you're looking at um it's going to be active sports anyways if it's on a middle school. You don't have a lot of passive areas in that aspect. But like I said, I think Flag Street might be an interesting one because if it is all part of one state prison parcel, you have active recreation with the soccer fields, but if you have the old State Farm Trail stuff as part of the same parcel, um it might be problematic. But it's something that we can definitely look into as part of this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anyone else have any questions? Any virtual hands raised? Any inquiries? Like I said, well, we'll be sharing the screen in a second. And moving along with the PowerPoint, talking about the timeline for the comment period. I think we're going to have that comment period open until the end of the month. So feel free to also share the plan amongst people you know, other committees, counselors, friends, relatives. It can be viewed. I'll have it posted for tomorrow, but if you want it tonight, I can email it over to you. I think I put the link in there, but I think the latest link works. The one I sent at 6:15, it should work, but please let me know if you're having any issues. But should be available on the town websites tomorrow. I'm gonna try to have to put it on the town's main page. Um, if you're also looking at the town's, main page as well too, there's an ADA transition plan that's looking for some comments as well too. So we got two plans out looking for comments. So yeah, comment period available today. We'll take the comments that you guys provided as part of this meeting, include them as well too, and then they'll be available. You can send me emails even after May 31st, but for the public comment period for this draft, we'll have this available through May 31st, 2026. And please send those comments to me. Email below, QR code right there too. If you're watching on YouTube, you already have your phone out, you're already got the camera out. You clicking on it and then you got it and then you're directed right to it. So works out perfectly. But other than that, I think that concludes pretty much our presentation. Timing is perfect. So for everyone that's going to go to the Taunton River Stewardship, you have your opportunity right now. Their agenda's on the website and see what they're up to as well too. But anything else, Beals and Thomas?
Nope, I think that pretty much covers it. Thank you all for coming out, and we really appreciate everyone's feedback and interest. I think we are on our way to a good open space and recreation plan for the town.
Alrighty.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you everyone for donating some time tonight.
All right. Appreciate everyone's time. Thanks again. And thanks for those watching on YouTube right now. All right. And that concludes that. Thanks, everyone. Take care.